Hi everybody, this is Josh Culp. We are learning Daf Yod Het of Masechet Gittin. And in the beginning of our daf this week, there's a question, when do we count for the purposes of the get? Or from when do we count for the purposes of the get? And as I explained in the commentary, the issue is here something that comes up in Masechet Yevamot, and that is that a woman is not allowed to remarry until 3 months from the dissolution of her previous marriage. That would be either by death or divorce. It's not because of mourning, but rather it's so that we know when from whom a subsequent child might have been. In other words, we want to know who the father of a child born after the second marriage, whether it was a premature child from the first husband, meaning maybe she was impregnated right before he died or right before he divorced her, and then we would need at least a 3-month separation because 6 months is too short of a time for a child to be viable. For the most part, that's true now, although it's a little bit less true with our technology, but certainly was true in the Talmud. They do think that there's a possibility of a 7th-month child, a child born in the 7th month of pregnancy, and therefore she has to wait 3 months. Now, according to Yevamot, that's true for all cases, even a woman who's too old, even a woman who is not going to get pregnant. Rabbis didn't make that distinction. It's something that's called in Aramaic la plug. The rabbis didn't make a distinction. I just wanted to briefly touch on why is it so important to know who the father was. First of all, I would say that my general inclination is just to say children like to know who their fathers are. You see this all the time, even in our society. Adopted children sometimes want to go back and see who their birth father, I think that's the correct term, their genetic father was, even if they know who their adopted father was. People have a natural inclination to want to know who their parents are. Certainly, you can see that through the prevalence of DNA tests today. For some reason that maybe none of us can really put our finger on, we like to know who are members of our family and who are not, both in even in a genetical basis when we have an adopted family or someone has an adopted family, they might still want to know that. Second of all, there are some technical halachic problems. First of all, you'd have to make sure that you can prevent incest. The child's going to have the same mother, but a person can't marry their sibling from the father's side either. So you want to know who's the father. The current one married to the mother, or the previous husband. And the second issue is, of course, inheritance. The other children born of the first father, the second father, will need to know whether this child is the child of the first father, the second father, to know whether they'll have to share the inheritance. Inheritance is not a small issue in halacha. So that's why there's a 3-month waiting period here. The question that our Gemara asks is whether that's from the time of the writing or the giving of the get. And we see some people acting stringently, some people acting a little bit more leniently, but it's all within the same framework, to distinguish between the first husband and the second husband, even if it's not always necessary, another 3-month waiting period. Sometimes the rabbis probably just don't want to distinguish between different cases and just want to say a woman always needs to wait 3 months from the time of the dissolution of her marriage, even if, for instance, she wasn't near her husband when he died.